Hello, my name is Shara Savage. I am a consultant in the Office of Assessment and Accountability. Today's training will cover the end-of-course state assessments. Today's agenda will include the early graduation pathway overview, testing dates, ordering information, test security and training, the electronic answer document, receipt and return of materials, miscellaneous policies, and COVID-19 guidance. Now, I would like to give you a brief overview of the early graduation pathway and the end-of-course assessments. Yes, there is a difference between a student who is in the early graduate pathway and one who graduates early. Although the wording is similar, early graduation pathway is tied to an early graduation certificate scholarship and benchmarks, whereas graduating early is tied to the completion of all minimum high school requirements in less than 4 years. Even if a student is not a part of the early graduation pathway, the decision for the student to graduate should be made in conjunction with the school administration and central office. Per 704 KAR 3305, students working towards early graduation and receipt of a corresponding early graduation certificate shall be supported by development and monitoring of an individual learning plan to support their efforts. All children are unique, so as you think about early graduation, there are many factors which could affect the students' or parents' decision to pursue this pathway, such as social, emotional maturity, future goals and aspirations, students' desire to take multiple AP or advanced placement courses, or dual credit courses in high school, financial readiness to support college tuition, students' ability to complete the requirements for early graduation within 3 years or less, participation in local events traditionally determined by grade classification such as prom, attendance, governor's scholarship programs. The early graduation program will stay in effect. Senate Bill 158 establishes that the early graduation is a deliberate pathway for students in grades 9 through 11 who wish to move on when ready, receive a diploma from the district, and be eligible for acceptance into Kentucky public universities, nonprofit colleges, independent colleges and universities. The pathway provides a financial scholarship known as the Early Graduation Certificate to support this action. So just to reiterate, early graduation pathway is a deliberate pathway for students in grades 9 through 11 who wish to move on when ready, receive a diploma from the district, and be eligible for acceptance into Kentucky public universities and nonprofit independent colleges and universities. The pathway provides a financial scholarship known as the Early Graduation Certificate to support this action. Therefore, this is different from simply graduating early. Graduating early is a credit-based option requiring students to meet minimum high school requirements and graduating in less than 4 years. This option is a local district policy and decision. Who is eligible for the early graduation pathway in the EOC end-of-course assessments? Students participating in the pathway must meet the requirements set forth by 704 KAR 3305, including the following. Students must notify the school principal within the first 30 days of the school year in which they intend to graduate. Enter the early graduation pathway prior to October 1 of the year in which they intend to graduate early. Be flagged in IC prior to October 1. Graduate in 3 years or less. Students exceeding 3 years do not qualify for the incentives identified with the early graduation pathway. Take the state-administered college readiness exam, which is currently the ACT, and meet the ACT benchmarks as set by the Council on Post-Secondary Education, which is currently 18 for English, 19 for math, and 20 for reading. Take and score proficient on all required EOCs. To meet this requirement, KDE will provide the secure EOC exams for the students participating in the early graduation pathway during the 21-22 school year. It is important to note that students can submit their intent form prior to the beginning of grade 9 or at the beginning of their 9th, 10th, or 11th grade. A student who does not pass an ACT benchmark does not qualify for the early graduation scholarship. 704 KAR 3-305 requires the use of the college readiness exam. At this point, that would be the ACT. Coyote and other CPE indicators utilized are college placement exams. The law states that the early graduation student shall meet the college readiness exam benchmarks established by the Council on Post-Secondary Education in 13 KAR 2020 for the placement in credit-bearing courses without the need for remediation. Because of this, the Kentucky Higher Education Assistance Authority, KHEAA, does not recognize Coyote scores or other CPE indicators and only uses ACT benchmarks as the qualifying college readiness exam benchmarks. For students who have missed ACT benchmarks and are testing in June of their junior year, the law says each public high school shall report early graduation certificate scholarship recipients by July 1 for the previous academic year for the Kentucky Higher Education Assistance Authority. ACT scores may be received back by July 1. However, the best practice would suggest that students take the statewide ACT in March and retest in April on the national exam. Also, remember that students can always test before the statewide exam. Now, let's take a look at the assessment dates. So here are the 21-22 testing windows. Students may only test within the designated testing windows. This ensures KDE's secure test policy is observed and maintain the integrity and validity of the scores. Districts must obtain permission from KDE in order to test outside the set of EOC testing windows. For example, a district could not administer the EOC state assessments during the K-Prep window. Testing outside of the set EOC window could result in an allegation. Please contact me should any questions arise for testing students during a specific test window. What are the steps to order EOC assessments? End of course assessment ordering information. So step 1, students must submit a letter of intent and be approved for the early graduation pathway by October 1 of the year in which they intend to graduate early. The student is then designated in IC as an early graduate using the early graduation pathway flag, and a signed letter of intent is placed in the student's folder. Once all students are flagged appropriately in IC, the DAC or designee will be able to run an early graduation pathway order report by school in IC. In IC, DACs will go to Select Ad Hoc Reporting, Data Export, State Published Filter. Then select the State Published Early Graduate EOC Order Report filter, Then select Delimit Values, then click Export. The order report will display with the field shown on the slide with the student's SSID number, district name, address, and school name. So step 2 in the ordering information. The DAC or designee will ensure that each student's information listed on the order report is correct. If a student's name does not appear on the early graduation order report but has been approved for the early graduation pathway and will be testing during the 21-22 school year, please add the student's SSID and tests needed. When a student's name does not appear, please ensure that the student is flagged correctly in IC. Students must be flagged as an early graduate student in IC to receive assessments. If a student is not testing during the 21-22 school year, that student may be deleted from the order report. DAC should monitor EOC orders to ensure that the order aligns with the student's individual learning plan. DACs will need to add 9 column headings: Algebra 2 EOC, Biology EOC, English 2 EOC, U.S. History EOC, Test Window, DAC Name, DAC Email, DAC email address, back name, and back email. Please, we do ask that you do not abbreviate or change the column heading titles. But as you can see on the screen, those are the columns that are needed for the order form. All early graduate pathway students must be listed on the order report to receive assessment materials for the 21-22 school year. The spreadsheet serves as the order for the EOC materials. So step 3, A1 should be marked under the needed EOC assessment for each student and an assessment window date stated. If a student is taking assessments in more than one test window, the DAC or DAC designee will need to add additional rows to ensure the correct tests are ordered for the appropriate window. An example is shown for you on the screen. All early graduates must be listed on the order report to receive assessment materials for the 21-22 school year. The spreadsheet does serve as the order form for the EOC materials. Please ensure that no additional columns are included. So step 5 in the end of course assessment ordering information. The DAC or designee will return the order report via email to the Office of Assessment and Accountability by Monday, November the 1st. All order reports should be emailed to myself, Shara Savage, the Early Graduation EOC Assessment Contact, with the subject line of 2021-2022 EOC Assessment Order Wildcat, that's your, for an example, Wildcat County. And then in the body of the email, please provide the testing schedule. So for example, if Wildcat County High School will be testing during the windows 1 and 2, you would indicate in the body of the email, window 1, testing days November 29th and the 30th, starting at 8 a.m. And window 2, March 3rd and 4th will be the testing days, starting at 8:30. If a student drops out of the program or the school needs to change the testing schedule, please email all changes as soon as possible. And just to reiterate, all order reports should be emailed to the attention of myself, Shara Savage, by November the 1st, Monday, November the 1st. Now, let's take a look at test security, training, and monitoring. A secure, uniform state administration of the EOC assessments is essential for successfully measuring students' academic skills. It is crucial that the procedures employed at the school be identical to those at other schools. Preparing for the state assessments requires district and building assessment coordinators to work together to make certain that the test security is maintained. Test security should be the top priority throughout the testing process, from the receipt of the materials through the test administration and the return of materials by all parties involved with creating or handling of the testing materials. It is not acceptable to take test materials out of the school or district building for any reason except for approved off-site testing. A little allegation tip for you. Anyone can report an allegation. If you are seen with secure materials outside of the school or a district building, someone might assume that you have nefarious motives. In reality, you are leaving to do off-site testing. Work with your BAC on how to protect secure materials when transporting for off-site or homebound testing. It is not acceptable to reproduce materials. If your district is short testing materials, please notify me immediately for additional materials. Lastly, a student shouldn't transport or move his or her own test materials from one location to another. For example, a student receiving extended time needs to move to one room to complete the assessment. An adult who has received the administration code training should transport and escort the student to the secondary location to finish. After testing is complete, it is time to return the test booklets, answer documents. These type of materials must be returned to KDE. Follow the instructions from the TAM on the proper procedures to use. What is the required training? All testing personnel must be trained on the Administration Code 703 KR 5080 and, if providing accommodations, the inclusions of special populations 703 KAR 5070, and read the provided EOC materials such as the EOC TAM, EOC Back Training materials, and the guidance document. All testing personnel can help create a fair testing environment by strictly adhering to these policies and procedures. New this year for the training completion of EOC training is required to administer the EOC state assessments. An ELA credit will be given for participation. Live virtual training with the ELA credit will be offered on Monday, August 23rd. A makeup training will be held on Monday, November 1st. Registration for trainings will be included in an upcoming DAC email. In addition to the trainings, office hours will be held throughout the testing cycle for the district assessment coordinators, the DACs, building assessment coordinators, BACs, and test coordinators. The office hour date and time will be announced in a Monday DAC email. Please see the Early Graduation Pathway webpage for all related resources. On a regular basis, staff from the OAA visit schools during the testing window. Depending on the pandemic and how it evolves, in-person monitoring visits may continue for the 21-22 school year. If in-person visits are not possible, virtual visits will continue. In-person visits are announced to the district assessment coordinator shortly before staff arrives at the school building. Sites are chosen by both purposeful and random selection. Virtual visits are scheduled well in advance. OAA staff will interview school and district staff, as well as request to see storage and testing areas. Certain documents are also collected at the time of the visit. Any situation that is found to violate the administration code or the Inclusion Special Populations Regulation is reported as an allegation. Allegations are investigated by KDE staff. The investigation requires documentation of the incident to be submitted and can include additional school visits and interviews with those involved, students and staff. What is involved with receiving and returning of materials? Materials for each testing window will be shipped to DACs within 10 days prior to the opening of the testing window selected. Now, very important, please inventory materials within 48 hours that they are received to ensure the correct test booklets and answer documents requested for each student have been attained. Failure to inventory in a timely manner could result in the student testing in the next testing window. The shipment will only include test booklet and inventory sheet. The DAC or designee is to return the testing materials on or before the established return deadline. All secure test materials, including assessment books and answer sheets if paper is required, must be returned to KDE by the return shipping deadline. If you receive materials and the student has withdrawn from the pathway, please return the materials immediately. Districts and schools are responsible for paying for the return postage. Districts and schools can choose their return method of shipping, but the shipping provider must enable tracking and provide a tracking number. The tracking number can be housed at the district. However, should an issue arise, the tracking number would be required. Districts are encouraged to return materials as soon as students are finished testing to ensure the security of the test materials. And as a reminder, all test materials are to be secured from the time the test materials are delivered until they are returned. When are materials returned to OAA? The table provided gives the shipping deadlines associated with each testing window. Just to reiterate from the previous slide, districts and schools are responsible for paying the return postage. Districts and schools can choose their method of shipping, but the shipping provider must enable tracking and provide a tracking number. Districts are encouraged to return materials as soon as the students are finished testing to ensure timely scoring. The DAC or the designee is to return the testing materials on or before the established return deadline. The shipping address is included in the EOC guidance document. Now, let's take a look at the electronic answer document. The EOC State Assessment answer documents are online in electronic format. It is the expectation that all examinees complete the EOC assessments by using the electronic answer document. It is not acceptable to have students to answer in the test booklets, and such a practice will result in delayed scores. If an examinee cannot respond to test items on the electronic form due to an IEP 504 or PSP, special permission to use paper answer documents may be requested. Please contact me for approval. If the examinees are using a paper answer document, they must use pencils when completing all information sections and grading and writing answers if completing the assessment with the paper answer document. So included in your electronic Test Administration Manual, your TAM, will be a Word document entitled Early Graduation Pathway EOC Assessment Electronic Answer Document. On your screen is an example of what the electronic answer document links will look like. So prior to students' arrival, please load the answer document on the testing device. Once the student is admitted to the testing room, scripts and directions have been read, and the student is ready to begin the exam, the student is to open the electronic answer document. And for today's example, we will use the U.S. History Part 1. Once the answer document is open, please instruct the student to select U.S. History Part 1. The student will click on the link and the Microsoft form for U.S. History Part 1 will open. Now, scroll to the bottom of Section 1 and select Next to move to Section 2. So at this point, please have your student select their district name, then enter in the district number, their school name, their school number, their first name, their SSID number, the date in which they are taking the exam, their test proctor name, and lastly, they will enter in their room number. Now at this point, you don't want the student to hit the submit button. You want them to select the back button. So at this point, distribute the test booklets with the front of the test booklet facing down. Students should not open the test booklets until they are told to do so. Once all the test booklets have been distributed, students will turn the test booklet so that the front cover faces up. Students will print their name, school, district name at the top of the test booklet's front cover. Then students will open the test booklet to the inside cover and read the directions. Students will have 45 minutes to complete Part 1. When the student has finished the assessment, students will scroll to the bottom of the page if they're not already there. Select Next. Then they will review the information that they put in just to ensure that it's correct and submit their answers. Once the answers are submitted, the students cannot go back to any of the questions. Students will follow the same procedure for U.S. History Part 2, as it is a separate form with a different link in the electronic answer document. If the student accidentally submits a blank answer document, please take note of it and include the information in the irregularity report. Allow the student to start over with a new answer document. Once testing is over, please send me an email with the school's name, student SSID number, test date and time, and exam. Now, let's take a look at scoring information. The table provided is the cut scores for each content area and performance level of the EOC assessments and the CPE benchmarks. Just a reminder, students must score proficient on each EOC assessment and meet the CPE benchmarks on the ACT. OAA will score assessments and return score reports to the DACs. The DACs will receive a summary report of all tested students and their scores by content area at the completion of scoring for each testing window. Individual student score reports with the name of the student and the scale score. The score reports will be provided in the secure web application. OAA will do everything possible to ensure scores are received in an adequate amount of time to prepare for graduation ceremonies. However, it is to the district's and students' advantage to test early within the third testing window and to return test materials as soon as possible. Now, let's briefly touch on accommodations, the calculator policy, and the retake policy. Students approved for accommodations under an IEP, PSP, or 504 plan have access to a reader, scribe, calculator, extended time, paraphrasing, reinforcement for behavior modifications, and interpreter for students with deafness or hearing impairment. In order to create a test administration that provides every student with a fair and unbiased assessment opportunity, please follow the KDE calculator policy within the test administration manual. Following this policy will ensure that all students have a measure of their academic achievement that is comparable to the students across the state. Can a student retake EOC assessments? As part of the protocol for this program, early graduate pathway students who do not meet benchmarks due to an extraordinary circumstance have been able to appeal to their superintendent to retake an assessment. OAA will continue to provide this option under restricted circumstances. As a reminder, the option to appeal to retake an EOC assessment is not simply to keep attempting to receive a higher score to meet a benchmark in order to fulfill early graduation pathway requirements. This is a strong indicator that the student is not ready for college level work. If the student is unable to reach proficiency in either of the courses or assessments. The intent of the appeal opportunity is to provide a recourse for those who otherwise exceptional students who experienced an extraordinary circumstance during testing that could have contributed to their less than typical performance. Examples could include a death in the family, parent in a car accident, or a medical trauma. So students who have an improved early graduation intent form and are flagged in IC may appeal to retake the EOC assessment once in some circumstance. So let me just reiterate that. A student may appeal to take an assessment one time in certain circumstances. Districts may determine that an extraordinary circumstance prohibited an otherwise exceptional student from obtaining benchmarks. Such a student may appeal to retake the EOC assessments on the grounds of the extraordinary circumstance following the procedures in the EOC guidance document. The DAC should keep documentation for the retake on file. OAA may ask to review it. So just a little bit about the procedure to request a retake of the EOC assessment. So complete the application to request a retake of an EOC assessment. Write a letter to the school principal or designee explaining the reason for appealing to retake the EOC assessment. Deliver the application and appeal letter to the school principal or designee within 5 days of receiving an EOC score that is below the benchmark. If your appeal is approved, if the student's appeal is approved by the school administrator, the letter and application will be delivered to the superintendent or designee. If the superintendent approves the EOC retake, the DAC may request the assessment for the next test window. If your appeal is denied by the school administrator or superintendent, the application process is terminated. Now there's a deadline, so due to the fact there will be no remaining test windows after test window 3, and because of the amount of turnaround needed to ship materials, have them returned, score the assessments, and prepare school reports, OAA must set a deadline for students requesting a retake. OAA will not be able to consider retake requests submitted after May 15th, 2022. The retake policy and form can be found in the Appendix A of the EOC guidance document. The DAC should keep the rationale for the retake on file. If the appeal is approved, the student may retake the test. Orders from retakes from the 2020-21 school year should be included in your order report that is submitted to me by November the 1st. For students that are approved for retakes during the 21-22 school year, a special order should be arranged with myself. As a reminder, a student is only allowed to retake an exam one time. Lastly, I want to touch base on COVID-19 guidance. With the pandemic beginning to surge in the state, we wanted to provide guidance on the in-person EOC testing for the school year. Safety guidelines at the time of testing should be followed during the administration. These decisions should be made in accordance with the local health department and state government guidelines at the time of testing. These plans are shared with the understanding that they may be modified given the changing circumstances of the pandemic. Adjustments may need to be made as COVID-19 outbreak conditions change. For the early graduation pathway program related questions, please contact Dr. Sweeney. For EOC assessment related questions, please contact me. Please check out the other back-to-school trainings provided by OAA. Thank you for your time and attention today.